Fill her up.
You're listening to the Gas Digital Network.
On the edge they take the throne, built on bones of those unknown. Coming first, never last, still erased from the past. I am an American loser. No one remembers my name. No legacy and no future. One step behind in the game.
All right, man. All right, we're back. Gas Digital, thank you so much for having us here again. We're part of one of the very best comedy networks in all of podcasting, folks. And, of course, that means that we have some people that we get to work with that are wonderful. First of all, we have the great Dom in the booth. Dom, thank you for being you. Thank you for all the hard work you do.
No problem.
Hey,
Happy to help.
buddy, you always help. You always. I want to know why Harrington's so mad today. He looks very upset.
Today's a very busy day.
Harrington looks very upset. I'm sure it's because his wife is getting deported or something like that. I don't know what's happening. Okay.
Reading is that a frown or a smile? The
I
wife
can't tell. His wife's a lovely woman. I believe Costa Rican. Is that correct, Mike?
She is as Italian as the day is long.
You're sure? You're sure about that one?
I've checked her papers. This is
Well, your peppers.
She looks like Madeline Stowe sometimes. I think about that. There's a Madeline Stowe vibe to her. Who, by the way, undercover Costa Rican. I don't know if you guys knew that. Madeline Stowe, she plays in all the period pieces movies. She's always like a very British-looking Mayflower type person. Quiet Latina. So they do exist, folks. That being said, the show's called American Loser. We're putting the spotlight firmly on second place. All right. We just put a smile on Mike Harrington's face. That's important to me. Okay. And by the way, one quick shout out to our producer emeritus, if you will, LP. And by the way, my father is the guest this week.
Hey, there we go.
His monthly requirement, as ordered by the judge, he has to come in here and be part of this.
Yeah, I got the ankle bracelet on.
It's either he does this and we take him to McSorley's afterwards, or we go hang out with Bobby Kelly after the show.
There you go.
So we're going to go do that.
That's the hook.
I'm excited about this one. LP's back in studio here, folks. And this is how the show really started. If you're new to the show, this is a great way to kind of introduce you to it. We've upped the game quite a bit. So we were over to Shared Universe Podcast Studio, which, by the way, Harrington, you want to get this one? They lose me. This is what happens in my life. This is comedy in a nutshell for me. A Shared Universe Podcast Studio, great guy named Ming Chen of Comic Book Men fame. He loses me, the star of that network. And Jon Stewart shows up and podcasts there the other day. I can't win.
Trade up or down?
I can't win, folks. I'm not quite sure how to handle that one. But we're excited here. By the way, guys, Gas Digital, they're doing the right thing. They're fighting the real fight, and I can prove that to you because I want to just tell you a story from history today, which we're going to focus entirely on second place, which is what we do here. It's weird, messed up stories from history that you've never heard before, okay? And the reason we want to tell you these stories is because I think they're important to know so you can kind of understand the country. I love our country. I love being American. I'm a pretty proud American guy, U.S. Navy veteran, and my dad's a shop teacher, which is about as American as Al Bundy scoring 3 touchdowns in a single game, folks. So
it's great to be here in front of a microphone again, and just
it is
taking in the loveliness of this podcast studio. So there we go.
And our producer emeritus over to Shared Universe is the great Big Kahuna, who will come on as a guest eventually, folks. But Kahuna just had a great moment. He had a great moment. He was working on set, and he finally got noticed for being a Nepo baby. My old producer is the son of the lead singer of PM Dawn. He looks just like him, and he's a great human being, and we love him very much. So all those things being said, we're going to dive right into this topic. The reason why I want to let you guys know about the all-important Gas Digital Network is because they're fighting the fight against censorship. And I want this show to get on YouTube. I need it to be promotable so we can get the word out there about the show. The audio listeners have been with us since day one. You guys mean the world to me, okay? We're growing the YouTube right now because we finally have 3 cameras, which provides a bunch of things. Number one, I can show you visual aids about these stories that we're telling you, which kind of adds credibility to the stories, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then also you can do what we're going to call KP's chin watch. So you got to look for my jawline. It appears, it disappears. I don't know what's happening. This beard is it's under a lot of tensile strength.
Now you
folks.
see it. Now you don't.
I got to lose weight. I have to lose weight. I got to work on myself. If you guys want to follow me, it's at KP Burke Sucks over on Instagram. Do me a favor, check that out. The reels, which were all Mike Harrington's ideas, are on there. And again, if you use promo code LOSER on the Gas Digital Network, not only do you get access to all the great shows here on the network, you also get the fully unedited version of the show I'm just going to warn you right now, folks. I'm going to warn you right now. If you're only going to watch this version of the show on YouTube, number one, thank you. Number two, leave a comment in there. Count how many chins I have this week and leave it in the comments. That will help me out. And we have other questions for you, too, we want to hear. Because I'm going to start reading the comments on the air. I think that's a pretty funny way to kind of interact with the people. There's going to be probably a 5-minute section of this podcast that's going to be completely removed that we're not going to be able to show you guys. And we're not trying to hide it behind a paywall because we're cool and shocking and risque. I just want to tell you the story of history, and it's not nice. It's not pleasant what we're going to talk about here today. And we did get a lot of feedback, too. Harrington's been working his butt off, Dad, his butt off.
Butt off.
Okay. He's been working very hard behind the scenes, and the great blind Mike has helped us out. We've now learned what it is. If you want to fight this war against AI Terminators or whatever it is we're going to call them, right? You want to beat the T-1000, you have to use your own T-1000, and our T-1000 is blind Mike.
There you go.
Okay. So if at any given moment I have to if it cuts out for a second, it's because we went behind the paywall, and you can hear it on the audio version. I promise you that'll be there. And number two, we're going to refer to it on YouTube as Al Swearingen mode. Okay. For those who don't know, Deadwood, one of the all-time great shows on HBO. When we say Al Swearingen mode, it means a picture of Al Swearingen is going to pop up, and we're saying things that Al Swearingen would say, which was typically routinely foul-mouthed.
Yeah, he was not. The censors were not quite up to snuff with Al.
No, and he could do it in a beautiful Shakespearean soliloquy quality, which is what we liked about him over here. But we are going to dive right into the topic over here, folks. I cannot encourage you enough. If you use promo code LOSER, it's $1 off a month. You get the entire access of all the shows, the entire back catalog to this very show as well. And it's the way that you help us keep growing this bad boy. This is my passion project. What you are seeing is I get in this microphone and I just bleed for you folks, okay? I am not, there's no huge following coming to support us on this one so far, but everybody that's with us is with us since day one, and that's what means a lot to me. That being said, Dr. Harrington, I have a question for you. You're a pretty educated fellow on this one. I can't ask Dom because Dom's going to have the total perfect answer. But you actually let me know about a future topic. I did not realize there was an attempt. This is the way we have to talk now. Blind Mike kind of coaches them. You got to talk in a certain way, like Sopranos. You can't say the things you want to say. Yeah. Do you know that there was a chance that they were going to try to get rid of President Gerald Ford? Do you know they were going to try to get rid of him, make him go away?
Yeah. I heard they might have tried to make him sleep with the fishes or something.
Yeah.
So he might have had to sleep with the fishes, but apparently he got saved by a friend of Dorothy. You know what I'm saying? A friend of Dorothy. All right? He was over the rainbow, but then he got in the right place at the right time. That's an episode for another topic. Larry Burke.
Yes, sir.
Larry Burke, Scoutmaster Emeritus, Troop 104, New Jersey.
There you go.
It does mean a lot to me when people yell out American Loser on the road. That happened this week. One of them was also one of our assistant scoutmasters from the Boy Scout days.
Oh, there you go, down in Delaware.
Well, you like to teach the kids because you are an educator still, retired, right?
Yep.
Did you know that President Harry Truman was also almost made to go away for a little bit?
Yeah, there was a group of individuals that tried to have Harry take a not planned vacation, a long-term vacation.
Now, was Harry Truman a popular president in your time, Dad, or specifically in your household of 64 Poplar Street, Dumont?
Well, yeah, I have relatives, we'll say, that were not enamored with the Democratic Party back in the day, post-World War II. And, Harry's full name is Harry, middle initial S, Truman.
What's the S stand for?
Yeah, well, that was the thing. The S really doesn't stand for anything. It's just an S. But in certain parts of my mother's side of the family, the S was the name would be Harry S for nothing, Truman. So
if you wanted to insult them,
that was kind of the sum total of what their feelings were about Harry Truman. S is for nothing. Thanks for nothing, Harry Truman.
See how much more polite they were with their burns back in the days, Harrington? That's the way they did it. They just would sit there and say, oh, it's Harry S. for nothing Truman. So,
yeah.
By the way, that was my dear, sweet Grammy Burke. They used to say that. The nicest lady
Yeah,
ever.
it was her side of the family anyhow, but yeah.
Well, she's also the nice. I've never heard her say a bad word about anybody in the years that I knew her, and she's referred to in saintly status as she should be.
Right.
So the fact that she didn't like Harry Truman meant there's probably some other people that really didn't like him. Okay.
Yeah, there was a few. He had some people from the other side that didn't really care for his.
Now, when you say the other
politics.
side, Dad, when you say the other side, it makes me think right now. It's strange to think this, by the way. Dom is going to know the answers to these. I learned from listening to Dom talk about the Marvel Universe that he is wildly knowledgeable on the concept of multiverses and all these other things, right, that my stepkids are super obsessed with right now. So when it comes time for the American Loser Jamaica retreat, which we will all go on together, it's Jamaica Queens we're taking you guys to, by the
there
way,
you go.
so I'm sorry.
The other Jamaica.
It is strange to think, by the way, Larry Burke, that we live in a country that we don't fully understand. I'm not sure if anyone truly understands it, and I don't mean the culture. I mean, as a dumb kid from New Jersey, all I know is that America has 50 states, right? 13 originals, a few add-ons, a couple regrets, Ohio, and a handful of former sovereign nations that joined us, sometimes on their own, other times against their will.
Yeah, I would at gunpoint.
Yes. You mean blank point diplomacy?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Blank point diplomacy. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to flash a little,
Right.
Sometimes you got to come heavy or you don't come at all, Dad.
Come of the speak softly but carry a big stick diplomacy.
Oh, my God. Was Teddy Roosevelt mobbed up? Is that what we're learning now? That's how he governed?
That's it.
So, people, if you have a hard time, this is your civics lesson here for the week. We're going to get into the civics lesson here because in about 15 minutes or so, they say that the AI stops listening and then our Terminator can come out. So, if you have a hard time understanding the difference between a territory and a state, first question is, how many territories are there? How many territories are there? I'm 37 years old, 37 in a row. And I just finally learned the difference between a state and a territory in terms of citizenship, Dad. In short, my dumb brain comprehended it this way. Territories can be overseen directly by the federal government. Directly by the federal government. That means the feds are calling the shots on you, okay?
Right. The locals don't really have a whole lot of say.
Yeah, there's no direct representation, which, by the way, is kind of what this whole country was founded upon, was the idea that we wanted direct representation.
No taxation.
Yeah, how dare you tax us?
representation.
Yeah, how dare you tax us without letting us have a say in the matter?
Yeah.
And you start to see that we betray our own causes on the regular. I love our country. I'm often pretty disappointed with some of our government, and that goes on all sides of the aisle. Again, folks, if you can tell what political party I am, let me know, because I haven't found it yet, okay? I am the Corinne Fisher of this world.
You're the guy sitting in the aisle, aren't you?
Yes, we're stuck in the middle on this one.
Yeah.
For those keeping score at home, I'm going to ask Dom, just because I feel like he might know. Dom, any idea how many U.S. territories we have, brother?
No, I have no idea.
All right. So I really wanted Dom just to be like, of course, there's 14, KP. Everybody knows this. All right. 14 territories, Harrington. You looked up. It's nuts.
I mean, I was counting on my hand. I was like, I think 5 or 6, maybe. I can name like Puerto Rico, Guam. It starts to run out after that.
Here's where we try to stay away from conspiracy. I swear, folks, we try to stay away from conspiracy. But what I have learned, Harrington, is that the difference between InfoWars and the History Channel is ad sales. That's all there is. Okay, if you want to tell the fun, cool, palatable part of history, then they're gonna, have a commercial where Brett Favre is gonna come tell you about these cool copper socks that help him, play football in the backyard. Or InfoWars is like, hey, we just told you way too much, and now you have to buy our supplements. So we're somewhere in the middle. We're somewhere in the middle. There are 14 U.S. territories. There is American Samoa, as any pro wrestling fan will know. They give us tough guy wrestlers and talented but concussion-prone quarterbacks for the Dolphins.
Yeah, and the thing about American Samoa, which I didn't realize until I started doing the friggin' research for this thing, that's the only territory that the U.S. has that's south of the equator. So we do have property south of the equator. Yeah, that kind of was an aha moment for me too.
Oh man, now you kind of just messed everything up in my head.
No, I'm sorry.
Right? So my world is expanding right here on the air, folks.
There you go. Thanks to your father.
This is routinely. Happy Father's Day, by the way, Dad. I hope you enjoyed. We gave you a nice bourbon.
Absolutely.
And then we ate. I don't know. Are we allowed to? I guess we have to call them steamers on air because you can't say the other dirty name for them.
No, they weren't. They were cherry stones. But anyhow,
cherry. We'll go with that. Yes, definitely not PISS clamps.
Right.
That's not. Yes, we're not going to say that. When it's time to get wild, folks, we're going to say Al Swearingen mode, and that's when you guys know we're actually saying the things we want to talk about here. American Samoa, by the way, as my father just covered. There's also Guam, right? I don't know if Harrington remembered that one. Guam, which is, by the way, I know it exists because I almost got stationed with the Navy there. Shout out to everybody on board the USS Frank Cable. Due to the international dateline, every day in America actually starts in Guam. Okay?
Yeah, but you're saying that's going to piss off a lot of people from Maine, though, because the sunrise
They get a little upset.
in Maine is really the easternmost part of the continental United States.
We need to have Guam and Maine fight each other, and I think that would be a great state versus state battle on this one. And by the way,
Lumberjacks versus wrestlers.
well, Guam is interesting because everybody who was stationed in Guam, this is what they told me when I thought I had orders to Guam before they sent me to Jacksonville instead. They're like, dude, you're going to get in great shape. All it is gentlemen's clubs and gyms. So that's all you do. You go to the gym, all right, you get a good pump on, and then you go to the gentlemen's club for some stress relief. That's what they do over there. So then there's the Northern Mariana Islands, which gives us volcanoes, places to snorkel, and apparently famous tennis players who are technically American. It's very weird how that one works. Then you have the U.S. Virgin Islands, which are famous for Larry Burke's honeymoon.
There you go.
Right? And rum, like tons and tons and tons of rum.
Good stuff, good stuff.
And arguably, by the way, there's a bunch of other territories as well, but this one's trippy, and this is why Dom and Harrington both get a hall pass for this one. The other territories don't have a routine population. They're just inhabited by the military, which you know what that means, Harrington, right? Kurt Russell is there doing experiments in the snow. That's exactly what that means, okay? John Carpenter, folks. He's trying to tell us something. All the movies are actually documentaries of events that haven't happened yet. That's what he's trying to tell us. This is not a civics class, folks. This is not a civics class. We're going to get into it right now. The most famous territory of all, in my opinion, folks, Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico gives us excellent food, great musics, and artists, killer rum as well, great cigars. And this fooled me because I wanted to make a joke about J-Lo, but apparently I can't. I can't, Mike Harrington. She is not from Puerto Rico, Jennifer Lopez. She is of Puerto Rican heritage, but she's from the Bronx, all right?
Same thing.
Yep. She tells us in the song. She's Jenny from the block. That's legitimate. This one bothered me a little bit. If you had to guess, Dom, who would be the most famous actor from Puerto Rico? So you got, obviously, Jennifer Lopez is off the charts over here. You got a couple great ones you can pick from. But, I mean, also, by the way, Puerto Rico famous for prize fighters, a lot of baseball players. But if you had to guess, all right, without using Google and ruining my bit, there's no wrong answers, Dom.
Ooh, I have no idea. Pedro Pascal, maybe? I don't know.
Pedro Pascal's an interesting one. I was going to say Benicio del Toro, right, would be a famous one. Joaquin Phoenix is Puerto Rican.
I wouldn't have ever guessed that.
I didn't know what to make of it, man. He was apparently born there. He's not Puerto Rican by heritage, as J-Lo is, but he was born there on some weird Christian missionary thing or something. But yeah, the Joker is from Puerto Rico, apparently, folks. So, like I said, we're not going to do a civics class here for you, folks, but Puerto Rico has always been known to us, and as far back as Thomas Jefferson, the United States has been trying to figure out, well, what are we going to do with them? Are they going to be our buddy, or are they going to wait to take them over? Are they going to become part of what we're doing? Are they going to become a friend of ours? Are they going to stay a friend of theirs, but they're a friend that can help us out with that thing? You know what I mean? So they're trying to figure that out. We don't officially get hold of them until Spain gives us Puerto Rico in the Treaty of Paris-Hilton. Sorry, slip up, Carly, slip up. I'm sorry, just regular old Paris. Anyway, we get Puerto Rico as a territory thanks to Teddy Roosevelt.
Teddy Roosevelt.
So good old TR.
He wasn't, and Spain didn't really give it to us. It was acquired. It was acquired.
Acquired. It was. It
took the Spanish-American War to acquire it. But
I got two stepkids at home, and the little guy is getting bigger and stronger. And he's eventually going to be taller than his older brother. And that's kind of what the Spanish-American War was, is that America is this emerging superpower, Spain is an empire in decline. So the day that we let the little guy just unload on his older brother, he's going to wind up giving them Puerto Rico and saying whatever it takes to make this stop.
Right.
Okay? So also given to us, by the way, is the Philippines, who were a territory as well. The Philippines, a very important, if you're a Manny Pacquiao fan or have any affiliation in the United States military, I really am not kidding about this. The Filipinos, they are their own, they're an independent nation as of 1946, but don't worry because they still come to America and make up at least a third of all of our nursing staffs and at least half of our armed forces. I'm not kidding. So if you love America, thank the Philippines. They love us, and
right.
Thank you for it. Lumpia is awesome. So But this story, folks, and we had to add, we just had to drag you guys on a little bit here, a little bit of a civics lesson. Now we can kind of get into what we're talking about. Dad, this story is about Puerto Rico and how two nationalists, and I'll see if Harrington can pull up the photo of these two guys. We do have their we'll call them mug shots for lack of a better term. Two Puerto Rican nationalists named, and by the way, this is the pronunciation of two Irish guys from northern New Jersey.
Yeah, let me just say
trying
up front,
to do what we can.
Yeah. Speaking as a guy who took 1 year of Spanish in high school and just barely made it through, a couple of points above the failing grade.
Well, here's
we
what I learned.
apologize ahead of time.
Yeah, we're sorry. We're going to apologize. Lynette Palladino is not here to help us with the pronunciations on this. As a Irish fella from New Jersey, what I did is I learned how to do, I could enunciate. That's what the Spanish girls would tell me in class, that I can enunciate very well, but I have no idea what I'm saying. So when I say things like, I'm trying to think of whatever the dumb slang words I used to come up with. It doesn't matter. Actually, it doesn't matter. What a bomb of a bit right there. Mi canoa es equivocado. That's what I would learn how to say. My canoe is incorrect. Mis frijoles.
That comes up in conversation all the time.
That's why I could walk up to my friend Katia was very pretty, and she was Costa Rican. I would walk up to her and I would say, mis frijoles son de muchos caleres. And she goes, you enunciate very good for a white boy. And she had her hoop earrings on, and I would just kind of melt inside while she played with them. And then what I was really saying is my beans are of many colors. So I never knew what I was saying, but I was confident in it. And so I'm going to use that same confidence now as I tell you that today's story is about Oscar Calasso and Griselio Torisola. So I nailed it. As you can see, here's the two fellas right here. Two Puerto Rican nationalists. They're going to try to get rid of Truman. They're going to try to make the S stand for ain't seen him. That's what they're going to try to make it stand for. As you can see there, Dad, those are the two most up-to-date headshots. Yeah. They could probably, one of them is obviously very, very well known. The other one might use this as a credit. For those who are checking us out on YouTube here, obviously, of course, we're talking about the great Louis J. Gomez and my good pal, the great Mike Figs. So two guys that we love of Puerto Rican heritage here, and two legit guys that grew up in the area, too, so they know kind of both parts. I don't know if they know the story, because, Dad, guess what? I consider myself a history buff. Didn't know the story.
Yeah, you never heard about this one. Even when you're reading the history books about attempts on presidential lives from the past, this one doesn't really kind of make the top grade.
S for nothing for sure, right, on this one. But before we get into the story of what Griselio Torisola and Oscar Colasso, when they almost changed the entire country and the entire world for that matter, on one particular date, folks, this whole story takes place. The events that are important here are November 1st, 1950. But before I get into the who, what, where, when, and why, it's time for some Zeitgeist, folks.
Zeitgeist.
The Zeitgeist, baby. That drop is my favorite. To those listeners of mine who are on the spectrum, or as we would say on my other podcast, on the Shrektrum, if you guys are made nervous by that sound here, I apologize to you, but it's the best drop we have, man. I love it. It's going to be my ringtone for my phone for a while. And the Zeitgeist, if you don't know, is German for Spirit of the Times. So I'm going to let you guys know what's going on around November 1st, 1950. The candy Pez has come out. I Love Lucy is the biggest show on TV. Marilyn Monroe is making people drool and think inappropriate thoughts, and Elvis is showing what the world can be capable of if you just try having black friends. Okay? Walt Disney puts out a movie called Cinderella. Born in 1950 is Morgan Fairchild and Aaron Gray, both of whom, yeah, I would. Is that fair to say, Dad?
Yeah.
Morgan Fairchild?
And Aaron Gray, both.
Yeah, Aaron Gray, season 2, Buck Rogers, diehard South Park fan. They know exactly what I'm talking about there. Also, John Candy and Bill Murray are both born as well. And 1950, by the way, is the debut of the now classic song, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So modern America is starting, okay? There's things you can... Morgan Fairchild is still hot, okay? You can still talk about her. Bill Murray is still on TV almost every week and still doing big movies. And Rudolph is an all-time classic.
All the time. Gene Autry, man.
That's
a singing cowboy.
A singing cowboy whose friend is a red-nosed reindeer. Yeah. Not bad.
And
hit me.
Leading up to the 1952, for the times... Second World War is now over, and things are definitely heating up with the Soviets. Truman has not been in office all that long, but he's got a lot of different things happening all at the same time here.
This is the start of the modern world. This is it's post-World War II. This is people that you know were alive during this time.
Right. I mean, in 1948, the State of Israel is recognized.
And demonetized. Continue.
And 11 minutes after the State of Israel is recognized, Truman puts his nod to the State of Israel, which didn't make too many friends in the Arab world. The Berlin airlift was only 2 years ago, where the Soviets blocked those sectors of Berlin, preventing any kind of supplies or anything coming into that.
Because you had East and West Germany at this time when they're split up into two.
The Germany was split up at the close of the Second World War. The nationalists and the communists are still fighting it out in China, so the whole communist threat is a real threat, not only in Europe but in Asia as well. So there's a lot of different things going on right here, and of course, the Second World War is fresh in everybody's mind, and the atomic bomb was detonated at the conclusion of the Second World War. But now the Soviets,
and the boys came through for us.
Yeah, now the Soviets have that as well, and then Truman didn't publicize it, but gave the nod to, all right, we got an A bomb, now let's go with the H bomb, which is even bigger and better kind of stuff. So, growing up as a kid in the 50s and 60s, I can attest to having civil defense drills that what happens if the air raid signal goes off.
Just hide under your desk.
Yeah, because that's going to protect you from an atomic bomb, right? But yeah.
You thought that, but the desks were made of lead back then, so that was actually more helpful than you thought.
I forgot about that. That's why you couldn't move them around much.
You got anything else on that one? I don't want to cut you off
there's
here.
a bunch of, it's just things are not real smooth around the world. There's trouble in the Middle East. Well, when wasn't there trouble in the Middle East? But, China's getting frisky with communism. Oh, and yeah, another little police action takes place where North Korea, which is communist, invades South Korea. So that little police action is underway by.
Isn't it terrible, by the way? They won't refer to that as a war still.
Yeah,
if you watch it's like, we're coming up on, we just had Memorial Day, and you still see people that are honored from the conflict in Korea. And we're like, just you can't even give them the decency of calling it what it was.
Yeah, and again, that's all political maneuvering too, because Truman didn't want to go to Congress to ask for a declaration of war because that might further tick off the Soviets, and now we're back into World War III. So that was officially a police action and not a war. But yeah, I mean, it's great times. Post World War II is great times in the U.S. The economy is booming. People are buying houses and having kids, and the baby boomers are popping out all over the place. But there's
you amongst them, correct?
Yeah. Well, yeah. It was a 51 for me, but. A year later.
So at the time of this story, you're not alive?
No.
All right. So we'd like to keep it that way on the show.
I'm wishful thinking.
So the 1950, again, post-World War II, it gets a little bit weird here. Now, in order to tell this story the right way, you kind of got to get into, we're going to try to do it in the quickest, easiest way possible. I like the show to be digestible for casual fans of history, not the people who kind of lift their nose about. There's a lot of people that like to argue with us in the comments section about stuff, and I get it. You know more than me. I'm not pretending. I still I drive a Kia Soul. Okay, I drive a Kia Soul. It's real. Okay, I tell jokes on the road on the weekends mostly. Sometimes on weeknights if a club doesn't really believe in me. I'm working on myself. Okay, but we're going to tell you this story in the most palatable way that we can, and I think it goes back to, as you're a former educator, right? We're going to give them with the who, what, where, when, and why. So interrupt me whenever you have something here, LP, but we're going to get this one rolling here because the last thing I need is Robert Kelly to start screaming at me in front of the Fat Black Pussycat here later, which, by the way, is the name of an establishment. That's not a code word.
Yeah, right.
The who in this story is really three people in one movement. The movement is that of Puerto Rican nationalism. And days before the event that is the topic of this episode, Puerto Rican nationalists are going to try to overthrow their government in hopes of gaining sovereignty. It does not work out because Puerto Rico is still a state, right? It's actually, we'll get into this later on. It's a territory, but it's actually a commonwealth, which gets a little bit tricky to kind of figure out. It's like saying, we're cousins, but only through marriage, so it's okay. Yeah.
And you can send representatives to our U.S. House of Representatives and stuff, but they can't vote.
It makes no sense. It really doesn't.
It's kind of crazy.
What a great job that would be, too, by the way. I'm an elected official for Puerto Rico. I don't have a job to do in D.C. I'm just going to collect this paycheck, and it kind of makes sense why, it makes sense why they were upset, I'll put it that way, where these uprisings are going to take place. So they do, it is part of the United States still, and Puerto Rico did get us back, though, because they've taken over the entire Lower East Side, like all of it. For this story in particular, though, two Puerto Ricans are super important. Oscar Colasso, who I know Harrington is a fight sports fan. Did you know that Oscar Colasso was also a boxer, buddy? No clue. Oscar Colasso is also the name of a famous boxer with the same name. I can't prove that he's named after him. I can't prove he's not related either. But for this story, it's about Puerto Rican nationalist and militant Oscar Colasso, who was born in Puerto Rico but grew up in New York. He was active in the Puerto Rican nationalism movement as early as the age of 14. So when you see people that are like, we call them hacktivists. That's the name, Dad. People who I'll put the hashtag on my cause, and that's how I support her. This guy's actually going to marches and learning things and trying to become involved in a positive step for change. So, just that's who you're comparing yourselves to when you hashtag I stand with whatever the cause is. All right, it's a little bit less respectable.
Yeah, and to that too, there's at the close of the Second World War. Puerto Rico aided the American cause, if you will, during the Second World big time, but primarily in the textile area. And now that the war is over, there's a lot of people that are really looking for work and out of work. And there's a huge exodus from Puerto Rico to the United States. But where do they land primarily is either South Florida or New York. New York City became a huge a jump-off point, if you will, from, again, thousands upon thousands of people leaving Puerto Rico to find work.
Yeah, New York is always going to be the influx of where the next wave of immigration is going to come from.
And again, going back to that Zeitgeist thing, too, that was the immigrant wave of the time kind of a thing. So as some people feel some of our immigrants are less than welcome right now, the Puerto Ricans were less than welcome back in the 50s to the United States.
This wasn't is before they had given us Rosario Dawson, so there was reason for hesitation.
Yeah.
Okay? You want to know about the immigrant experience, too, by the way. Every wave has come over and been like, oh, they're no good, they're terrible. That's well documented in Gangs of New York, right? Every single wave that comes over, whether it be a religious sect, whether it be a different part of the country, whatever the deal is, there's always going to be hesitation. The new guy gets bullied. That's kind of just how it works in America.
The rookie.
The rookie. That's a good way to say it, actually.
Yeah.
Now, by the way, if you want to figure out how a 14-year-old boy from Puerto Rico in Oscar Colasso, and Oscar Colasso was a smart guy, very well-spoken guy, if you want to know how a boy can get involved in a cause like this at the age of 14, he starts at age 14, he's getting interested in this. He'll attend demonstrations and speeches. What's really going to catch young Colasso's attention is learning about a guy who is it's extremely controversial. I swear on this show, we try to stay away from conspiracy stuff, but it just keeps finding me, folks. All right?
So what happens when you scratch at it a little bit and you uncover some of the stuff.
Oh, man. So I'll tell you what, in a second, we're going to go over to Al Swearingen mode, and we're going to take a pregnant pause here for a second. Audio listeners, stay on the line here with us. Gas Digital members, you guys get all of it, okay? Again, promo code LOSER if you not want to be a part of this. I have to cut this part out for YouTube in a second, but we're going to talk about why young Oscar Colasso's attention is highly, highly, highly captivated by the controversial man named Cornelius P. Rhodes. By the way, Harrington, not a joke. Cornelius P. Rhodes went by the nickname Dusty. So I'm about to tell you about not the son of a plumber, okay? Not the son of a plumber. This is an awful, awful man named Cornelius, a.k.a. Dusty Rhodes. Not the cool one. This guy will call him problematic at best. So, folks, if you're watching this on YouTube, please stand by. Do me a favor. Google him while we go to what we're going to call Al Swearingen mode. Larry Burke, can you believe people were talking this way? This is from the 1930s, by the way, folks. The 1930s version of what Roseanne did on Twitter.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely, we can believe that.
he didn't mix words. Okay,
No.
if you guys want to know what was said, it's behind the paywall at Gas Digital, or listen to it on audio. If you guys want to write, someone wants to give a spoiler away. Runaway Slav, I know you're listening, buddy. Go ahead and say what we said in the comments. This controversy, by the way, it gets played off by Rhodes. He plays it off. He goes, "These are just jokes, folks. These are just jokes."
Yeah, I had a couple of cocktails. I had a couple of pops, and it was just for fun.
Yeah, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it takes him the rest of his life, that these accusations, they plague him the rest of his life. It becomes gasoline on the fire for Puerto Rican nationalism. When someone who's working at one of these cancer institutes openly says that we're doing terrible things, unethical experiments on people, it absolutely is going to get mentioned in comments by the pro-nationalist movement for Puerto Rican sovereignty. So stories like this, how could you not be affected by this story here? So young Colasso is hearing these stories as far back as age 14 when he's getting involved in all this. And the controversy is it doesn't ever go away. That plagues Rhodes his entire life. They actually take away some of his scientific merit. Okay, so I don't want to say anything too crazy, but let's say there's a famous doctor out there that people are writing children's books about who might, come under some scrutiny right now for some unscrupulous practices. We might be very embarrassed 30 years from now that we were heralding this guy as, the Time Magazine Man of the Year. Right? Which happens, by the way. Time's Man of the Year, it doesn't always mean that they're the good man of the year. Okay?
Yeah,
we've learned that
and
one.
This letter that he wrote plagues him or follows him for the rest of his life and even beyond, because there was an award that was given out in his name, and that was later changed, that they couldn't send.
How do you justify?
Yeah, how do you justify sending a scholarship or whatever in this guy in Rose's name, that whether it really was factual or not, there's a shadow cast on his whole research and life after that, just from this letter that.
That's right. It's like the Cosmo Kramer Scholarship for African American students. You know what I mean? It doesn't read well once you put it all together in context. Colasso, by the way, now living in New York, meets and quickly befriends Griselio Torresola, whose family is deeply involved in this. So Oscar Colasso is kind of like they're a little bit of an odd couple, these two. What they do goes down in infamy here. But the two of them they're a team, and they like working together with each other. They hit it off right away. They both have the same interests, but Torresola is he's like Dutch from Predator. He's Schwarzenegger. He goes, we're going to get in there. We're going to get things going, right? And he's been guerrilla fighting. Literally, his entire family's all involved in this uprising here, because if you want to know how to get him actively engaged, this is what you do. If you want to upset somebody, first of all, an invading force is never going to have the same power as a defending force in any sort of war combat. Now, let's show Griselio Torresola, whose family is deeply involved in this cause. Let's horrify him, and let's make him see parts of his hometown get destroyed by martial law, as the government of Puerto Rico's military will put down what is known as and by the way, it's Hayuya, okay, because the H's are the J's. That's how it works on that one. So if you get an HJ from a Spanish girl, it's actually, I don't know how they would pronounce that one, but this is actually pronounced the Hayuya Uprising. That's it. The final name in the story is President Harry S. for Nothing Truman.
Yeah, let's just back it up, though. I mean, that the Puerto Rican's military was now squashing all these pro-nationalists, and in more than just one location, but one of the towns that they went in there and just started, taking names and kicking ass kind of a thing was in this guy's hometown.
You mean firing machine guns onto rooftops and probably bringing in fighter jets in order to accomplish the will of the people?
The full force of the military.
It was martial law.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a military governor, if you will, an appointee over Puerto Rico at the time. So
that's right. We're going to exploit you, but you don't get rights. They're a little upset, justifiably.
Yeah. And he's not. The governor is not noted as being pro Puerto Rico kind of a thing. That there was many that felt that this is the worst guy that we could possibly have. But he
You
was
know who
gonna,
probably liked him?
he was going to squelch. They weren't going to let anything spring up from under their feet. That they were going to squelch this right from the get-go.
He was probably a carefully selected candidate that was approved by Harry S. for nothing Truman. So, now the what of the story is this: the white is quite simple. The white is quite simple. Jeez, I got to stop. I got to get back on 9 milligram nicotine pouches. The what is quite simple, in fact, folks. Griselio and Oscar have decided that the injustices being inflicted on the Hayuya uprising and its suppression in the papers, again, total martial law declared. There's literally fighter planes being called in to put down this citizens' uprising. So next time you see a can of smoke or something like that, or rubber bullets getting fired at a crowd or anything, I understand the sympathy to it. And yes, they are putting their foot down and they're standing up to an authority for a cause they believe in. It's just not as impressive unless literally you're hearing the fighter jets coming down on you, and that's what these people were doing in the Puerto Rican nationalist movement. So,
and this is only days before too.
Literally 3 days before, and you can see photos in the paper, and that's why Torisola is now seeing part of his hometown. Getting destroyed by martial law over here.
Yeah, and he's not reading about it in the paper, so because there was a whole media
suppression.
Squelch too. That
total suppression.
Yeah, it's totally suppressed, but word is coming to him, I guess, through other sources that he's not reading the New York Times about the military action that was taking place in Puerto Rico.
Well, Truman himself, this is why he becomes so important into the story. Obviously, he's the president of the United States during this time frame. He dismisses it when he's asked by the media, what happened there, that there were fighter jets firing onto the rooftops of people's homes and stuff like that over in Puerto Rico. He goes, that was just, it was like some Puerto Ricans. They were like mad at some other Puerto Ricans. It was very Puerto Rican, I don't know, but not really a U.S. affair. Very Puerto Rican stuff going on over there. Puerto Rico.
Gang war.
That's what he played it down as. And Torisola, his family is involved in this. I believe his mother and father were heavily involved. I think his father was jailed and his sister was taken into custody as well, too. They were true believers. They were fighting the guerrilla warfare on this one. So in order to get, if that action is not making the papers, what's the great movie? It's Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal. And fantastic movie if you want to know how corrupt and how entertainment-based media has gotten. There's a great line in there, and it's if it bleeds, it leads. And so they took that kind of logic into play. Okay, so if we're going to suppress what's happening on the island, what if we bring the island's problems to the heart of the United States?
Bring it to the forefront.
Which is why.
Page 1.
Oh yeah, page 1, baby. November 1st.
Above the fold.
November 1st, 1950, a United States without Larry Burke, okay, is about to see, days after the uprising, these two young Puerto Rican fellas will get on a train to D.C. They are armed with, Oscar has a Walther P-38, which is a German gun, right? And Griselio is going to have a Luger, which is probably the most famous German handgun in the world, right? So P-38 gets turned into the PPK a little bit. It's still Walther. That's James Bond's gun eventually, right? But that was a tank officer's gun in World War II, I believe. They head off to their mission. What is their mission, Mike Harrington? These two young Puerto Rican nationalists are going to head off to Washington, D.C. with one thing and one thing in mind only.
Changing policy.
To steal the Declaration of Independence. Yes, they are going to. By the way, my bad. That's Nick Cage. Their mission, by the way, is to off Harry S. for nothing Truman. They're going to make him disappear, folks. That's their plan. They're going to do it loudly so that it gets covered in the papers over here. But in order to do so, they're going to have to get over to him. So they're going to go to the nation's capital, which it's not easy to do that in general. Okay, D.C. is not an easy place to get to begin with, let alone with bad intentions. Now, if you're going to try to off the sitting president, that's wild to think about. But for the Zeitgeist, it's a little unnerving to remember that this is a pre-Kennedy era, and the only presidents that were successfully gotten rid of by force, if you will, were Abe Lincoln, James A. Garfield, and William McKinley. It has been almost 50 years since a successful attempt had been made, and these two fellows from PR had a little know-how, had a lot of willpower, and they certainly had a cause that they believed in. And by the way, Dad, they had a little bit of luck on their side. How are these two Puerto Rican nationalists going to get inside the White House?
Well, they leave New York and they come to Washington, D.C., and they're, they each have their own weapon of choice, if you will, tucked into their waistbands, and They do what anybody visiting Washington, D.C. is going to do. They go sightseeing. So they're going around town, and then they tell a cabbie to take them to the White House. And at that particular time, the White House, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, is undergoing some major reconstruction. Harry Truman, in his second term, he wins the election, comes back to the White House, and he's told, "Sorry, Mr. President, but you're going to have to move out of the White House because this place is in such bad shape. We're going to have to undergo a major reconstruction." Almost.
Please tell me they had official White House plumbers instead of the accidental ones Nixon liked to bring in.
This was a building that was literally falling apart because, again, we have to remember that the White House was built, back in George Washington's time, and there's been a few little niceties that were added to everybody else's household that maybe the White House needed to have a couple of upgrades too, like. Well, indoor plumbing would be good. Heat and air conditioning would be good. Communications, all these various systems that were not even dreamt of back in Washington's time are now, through the years, through 150 years, have been haphazardly installed into the president's residence. And they're finding out stuff right before the election that, this place has fallen apart. As a matter of fact, there was reports that the Trumans were in the White House for Harry's first term of office, and they'd be in the dining room, and all of a sudden the chandelier overhead, the crystals start tinkling and stuff, and the whole thing starts swaying back and forth because the ceiling is ready to cave in. And again, historically, going back, the White House was burnt by the British, and some of the repairs that were made way back when in 1812 still weren't quite up to snuff. And a lot of the presidents that were in
Government contractors, folks. They don't do
well,
a good
there you
job.
go. It's a government contract, and even some of the original buildings construction was not quite up to snuff, and then various changes come through, and every president that came in here, hey, this is government housing. We're not going to put a whole lot of money in here. We might only be here for 4 years, so this is a rental. We're not going to see the fruits of any kind of extensive renovation. So a lot of things were ignored. And prior to the Second World War, we went through a depression, and they weren't going to spend all kinds of money on the president's residence.
The president's house was in disrepair. That's how tight things were in this.
Absolutely. So badly so that Harry's got a daughter that liked to play the piano, and she's upstairs in one of the upper rooms. She's playing the piano, and the foot of the piano falls through the floor, falls through the ceiling, and now there's the leg of the piano is sticking through the ceiling of from the room
that
below.
Deserves
kind
a
of thing.
Scooby-Doo ruh-roh.
Yeah, ruh-roh. That's not good a lot, kind of a thing. So anyhow, Harry is not in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. He's not at the White House. He's across the street at a residence called the Blair House, which now is used for visiting dignitaries, and the president-elect will use that house prior to the inauguration. So, I mean, Trump was in Blair House before the inauguration for his second
Tiger.
time.
That's a tough word.
Yeah, it is. That is a tough word. So anyhow,
did you know that Kamala Harris is? I found this out. She was having guests there while she was the vice president, first female vice president. The first female vice president of the United States. Her husband is actually known as the second gentleman.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Instead of first lady, he's the second.
Yeah. Oh, will the second gentleman be joining us tonight? No, just this one. Just.
Yeah. Instead of the president's wife, the first lady.
It's a little bit of a joke about a third party or a devil's three-way, whatever you want to.
Yeah.
Is the second gentleman joining us for dinner tonight?
There you go. But anyhow, Harry's not in the White House. He's
Nope, just Montel
in
Williams.
He's in the temporary residence of Blair House, which is really across the street from the White House. And Harry had a habit of, getting up in the morning, walking across the street. He only had a couple of bodyguards, for the lack of a better term, that were escorting him. And so now he would go walk across the street, do his business, because the offices were there, but the residence part of it was under reconstruction. I mean, there's a great photo of the interior of the White House where there's a bulldozer in the middle of the White House on a dirt floor, and all the floors above are just ripped out because, it came to that Tom Hanks movie, The Money Pit, where he and Shelley Long buy this house, and everybody's telling them tear it down. Well, that was one of the considerations, was just tear the freaking thing down. It was in such bad disrepair, just tear it down and build it over again. But it was decided that the outside shell would remain and the interior would be rebuilt. But anyhow, Harry is now walking back across the street, back to Blair House to have lunch with Bess, as he normally did. And he goes upstairs to take a nap, which was kind of his typical day. That after lunch, he'd have
It's good to be the king.
Have a little siesta, and it's good to be the king.
Well, this is going to lead us to the when here. If I don't want to cut you off here.
No, that's pretty much what I got. I was just trying to lead that up to you.
Worthwhile side note for our boy Dom back there. The Blair House is a combination of a couple of houses, by the way, Dom. One of them is the Parker House, which was literally the Peter Parker house. So Spider-Man's involved in this story, buddy.
There you go.
Blair House, obviously the Spider-Man house. Now, this brings us to the events of November 1st, 1950. So now these two Puerto Rican nationalists who are going to attempt to go get rid of the president, they realize that they have this additional kind of luck on their side here. They don't have to break into the White House to do this. They can actually do this at Blair House. Even if their plan works to a T, they're still probably not going to live through it, though. So Colasso learns how to operate and load his weapon from a much more experienced Torresola. So Ken and I, we talked a couple of times, like, yeah, I've gone, I'll take a couple of guys for, we'll go shoot some guns or something like that. It's a fun time. I grew up shooting, so I know some stuff. But I have seen people lock up in fear the first time that they use a firearm. And that's kind of what winds up happening a little bit in this story over here. So Torresola will use the Luger, and Colasso will have the P-38, both Nazi guns, oddly enough here. Truman, upstairs sleeping, like you said, Dad, on the second floor of the Blair House as the attempt unfolds. Colasso walks up. He's going to try to go full, he's trying to go full badass. And he gets he has a guy dead to his rights, a White House police officer dead to his rights here. But as we stated earlier, he's not quite Juan Wick over here, okay? He winds up screwing up a little bit. Colasso will have the drop on the guy and be able to point the firearm at him and be able to sit there and be like, okay, cool, so my first obstacle is down, right? But guess what he does? He forgets to chamber around. So he's just going, whoops, hang on one second. I'm trying to work on something here.
Pulls the trigger and nothing happens.
So nothing's happening, and this is while the officer has his back turned to him. Now, as the officer turns around, probably to figure out why someone's screaming, in Spanish, cursing at him, if you will. Pendejo.
Well, if you just hear a click behind your head, that's
usually, if you're a cop, that's a sound you want to turn your head towards. Right. Colasso now has time to chamber a round and fires, but again, Juan Not So Wick is only able to hit him in the knee. This gunshot rings out. This will wake up Truman and will alert the Secret Service, in particular Agent Vincent Mraz, of the situation. He immediately, out of nowhere, returns fire on to Colasso, and Mraz, who is a Marine Corps veteran, by the way, folks, they know how to shoot. They're not good at much else. Mraz's shots will
hit.
Said
the Navy man.
I'm not a good shot. I'm okay at best. I need a shotgun for a pattern's sake. But Mraz's shots will hit Colasso in the chest and drop him immediately on the entrance steps to the Blair House. Colasso is also hit by two other officers with other gunshots, which is crazy because, folks, Colasso has now been hit multiple times. He's dropped on the front steps of the Blair House. Literally, President Truman is standing in the window looking down going, whoa, what's going on over here? Secret Service is screaming, Harry, get out of the way, moron. What are you doing? Yeah. Colasso lives. He's not the one that dies. It's now time to tell the story about the guy who dies over here. As Collazo lay bleeding on the steps of the entrance, Torrisola, the more skilled gunfighter of the two, has made his way to the west corner, and he's going to catch a chance to take out a security guard by the name of Leslie Coffelt. Okay, Leslie Coffelt is worth mentioning here in the story. He comes back into it in a second. Mraz had been a Marine. Okay, so that's the guy who took out Collazo, or at least dropped him, ended the threat, right? Coffelt was an Army vet from World War II who had never made it overseas. Okay, and due to a medical discharge, he wasn't able to actually get into any combat over there. So he was fired at by Torrisola 4 times with 3 bullets hitting him, and this mortally wounds him. The key here is mortally wounds. He is eventually going to die from the gunshot wounds he received here, but he doesn't die right away. More on that in a second. Torrisola will move past Coffelt, but he will not be following the ever-important rule from Woody Harrelson in Zombieland. What's that rule, Dad? You never saw that movie, did you?
I don't think I did, but
It's called the double tap rule.
double tap, put one in his head.
He didn't double tap him. So now Torrisola will next fire upon police officer Joseph Downs. He will hit him before he can draw his weapon from his hip, right? And now as Downs retreats, he is hit again by Torrisola in the neck and back. Shockingly, he lives as well. Not only is he going to live through this, he's also able to secure the door that prevents Torrisola from getting into the building at all. So now he's eliminated another threat too. There's another barrier in place to protect the president, who again, Harry Truman, standing in the window being like, what are you guys up to down there? Oh my God, are you guys trying to get rid of me? This is insane. This is crazy.
Harry was from Missouri, which he touted as the show me state that he was, and he had a thing on his desk. The buck stops here. That he was the guy that was going to take care of things. And
he also said he wasn't afraid of his own attempt on his life because he goes, I've already been it's been tried on me in World War I. The professionals, also known as the Germans, were after me back then.
Right.
So, Torrisola, by the way, he's making all these things still happen. He's showing his skill as the gunfight continues, but he forgot about one thing, Mike Harrington. He forgot about the double tap rule. All right? Good old Leslie Coffelt, the security guard he had just put 3 rounds into, now stands up behind him, props himself up against the guard shack, puts his .38 special in his hand, fires a quick shot from about 30 feet away, nails Torrisola just above the ear. It's a splat, boom, over kind of a thing. He goes down quick, fast, and in a hurry, folks. Collazo again down on the steps. The president is safe, and the more deadly of the 2 attackers is now been unalived. I hate saying it too, folks.
Right.
Get behind the paywall. I don't have to say stuff like this anymore.
Unalived.
This, by the way, goes down in history as the biggest gunfight in Secret Service history. It lasts about 90 seconds, which is as long as one of my reels on Instagram. So please know that one here, folks. The only casualties that are confirmed, by the way, from this is Torrisola, who dies immediately, right? And Leslie Coffelt, who will succumb to his wounds and die a few hours later, but is honored because the Blair House basement is known as the Leslie Coffelt room. They named that room after him because of his service in protecting and ending the threat faced towards Harry S-for-nothing Truman. So the only two casualties of this entire gunfight are actually one another's Grim Reapers. So it's a little bit ironic on that one here. LP, before I get into the why, do you have anything else that you want to say? Because we got to wrap up here because Robert Kelly's about to start yelling at me.
Caulfield would become known later as the only Secret Service member who died protecting the president from an assassination attempt. I don't know if we're allowed to say assassination.
You know what? At this point, if they're still listening, the AI, I hope the AI learned something. Yeah. That's what I like to think. I like to think we're teaching. It's like Terminator 2. We're making the Arnold version of Terminator learn how to say cool stuff. So that's our version of Cowabunga, dude. You know what I mean? Or hasta la vista.
Yeah. Then in 1951, in the wake of the assassination attempt, Congress passes legislation that, hey, maybe we ought to do a little better job of trying to protect our president, because when Harry Truman stuck his head out the window from the second floor to see what was going on, he was yelled at by the Secret Service. But if the bad guy wasn't in the process of reloading, he probably would have put a couple of shots into Harry with him sticking his head out the window. So, but anyhow, in 51, Congress then passes legislation, and it's really to increase the protection, and the Secret Service really comes in to protect the president and the president's family, and the vice president elect and president-elect, there's a broader net being cast with Secret Service protection because
They
of
get
this incident.
things because as recent events would dictate, it's not over yet, folks.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on here. The why of the story is very simple, folks. It's really more like, why don't we know more about this? This is a mere footnote in history. Had they pulled it off, it would have been, something we talk about every President's Day right before a mattress sale. Why did it have to happen? Why would these guys do a Dirty Dozen style mission in order to bring notice to their cause? Here's a why for you. Why would Harry, S for nothing Truman, take his would-be assassin's death sentence? Because Oscar Collazo, he lives through this. He gets taken to the hospital. He gets put into custody, right? He is convicted. He will be getting the death penalty. And his death penalty is commuted by Harry, S for nothing Truman, to life in prison. And what do they do instead, folks? Truman actually hears the whole story out. Now, don't get it all twisted here. It's not like this kindness comes out of him all of a sudden. He just decides not to give him the electric chair, and they do jail his wife for about a year without any sort of representation. But the bottom line of the story is because of this attempt, Truman hears the whole story out. He will also help organize what's known as a plebiscite, which is an effort to have Puerto Rican residents be able to vote directly on a new constitution. The vote for this will pass with an 81.9% approval, which effectively will make Puerto Rico a commonwealth. So when they argue about territory versus commonwealth, it's actually a commonwealth because of this. They have special rights, more so than those weird uninhabited territories that we don't talk about.
Even that, though, Kevin, there was controversy over that because at the election, they only had two choices, and to be an independent was not one of the choices.
Sounds like every election of my life.
So take a commonwealth or, a territory. But, but anyhow, there's a lot of history within Puerto Rico that you're not going to read about in your high school history book.
No, sir. Collazo, by the way, will spend years in prison until his sentence gets commuted as time served by President Jimmy Carter. So Jimmy Carter literally lets him out of jail and goes, "Go back to Puerto Rico. We've changed. We're kinder, gentler machine gun hand now," to quote Neil Young. And he has him, instead of having him put to death here, as they could have in the electric chair, he's now out of jail, and he becomes another part of the reformer, so he's continuing to press for more rights for Puerto Rico. The president let him off the hook pretty good on that one by not giving him the chair, and then Jimmy Carter literally lets him out of jail and says, "We're going to help improve conditions on your island here."
Yeah, commuted the sentence for time served.
Yeah, you have to improve the conditions upon the citizens you had previously declared martial law on. That's kind of just how I feel, folks. Anything you want to say in wrapping up here, LP? Because we're out of here, I think.
No, that's pretty much it.
Well, thank you very much for that one, guys. Do me a favor if you can. Keep supporting the show. If you guys want to leave comments on here, we're doing Chin Watch. Tell me how many chins I have in the comment section right now. Also, tell me what you think they're up to on those other weird unincorporated territories that we kind of talk about but don't talk about. If you guys want to check it out, it's at KP Burke Sucks over on Instagram. We put new reels out every single week. I got a bunch of road dates coming up. I should really get back onto my website, which is kpburkecomedy.com. Shout out to the great Mike Harrington. Thank you so much to Dom. Thank you to the great people at Gas Digital. Promo code LOSER gets you behind the paywall. You can actually hear the crazy stuff that Dusty Rhodes said that we weren't allowed to say on YouTube here, folks. But all things being considered, this is me trying to wrap it up quickly. I'm an ass. My name was KP Burke, and that was American Loser.
On the edge they take the throne, built on bones of those unknown. Counted first, never last, still erased from the past. I am an American loser. No one remembers my name. No legacy and no future. One step behind in the game.